Good afternoon, and please be seated. I am Stefanos Polizoidis, Dean of the School of Architecture. On behalf of the faculty and staff of our school, I would like to welcome the graduating students, their parents, families, and friends to the 2026 School of Architecture Diploma Ceremony. And what a magnificent day, what a magnificent sunny day we have. Today, we honor the accomplishments of our students and celebrate their journey of academic excellence and personal growth. But before we begin, I would like to introduce the professors, guests, and students on the stage with me. To my right, Ming Hu, Associate Dean for Research, Scholarships, and Creative Work. Richard Economakis, behind me, Assistant Dean of Graduate Studies. Father Richard Berlin, Assistant Dean of Undergraduate Advising. And Paul Kapp, Director of the Michael C. Duda Center for Preservation, Resilience, and Sustainability. On my left, John Torti, keynote speaker. Claire Stein, MArch, valedictorian of the Historic Preservation Graduate Program. Valedictorian of the Graduate Architecture Program, Claire Stein. That's a much better one. Valedictorian of the Historic Preservation Graduate Program, Cesar Korosian. Undergraduate valedictorian, Abigail Moore. And salutatorian Karen Hickey, who will be presenting the invocation today. Karen?
Good afternoon. Please take a moment to join me in prayer and reflection. Heavenly Father, today we gather in gratitude. We give thanks for the gift of this day, for the privilege of learning, and for the journey that has brought the class of 2026 to this moment. Thank you for the talents, passions, creativity, and purpose you placed within each of us, and for the inspiration that called us to pursue architecture in service of something greater than ourselves. We give thanks for our parents, families, loved ones, and friends. Their sacrifices, encouragement, and unwavering support has made this achievement possible. We give thanks for all those who walked beside us, both here with us today and present with us in spirit. We thank our faculty, mentors, administrators, and colleagues who challenged us, guided us, and believed in us throughout these past 5 years. Through long nights in studio, difficult critiques, travels, friendships, and moments of both triumph and uncertainty, we have grown not only as designers, but as people. As this special and bittersweet weekend marks the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, we ask for strength and courage to take this next step with faith and conviction. Help us to stand up for what we believe in, to care for one another, and to continue leaning on each other for support as classmates, friends, and soon-to-be alumni of the University of Notre Dame. Lord, help us to carry forward the mission entrusted to us, to be a force for good in this world. May we use our gifts with humility, integrity, and compassion. May the spaces we create bring dignity, beauty, hope, and human flourishing to the communities that we serve. And may we never forget that architecture is not only about the buildings, but most importantly about the people. Please bless the graduates of the School of Architecture, class of 2026, and all those gathered here today. We offer this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Karen. It is indeed wonderful to see the parents, siblings, family, and friends and all those who gather today to celebrate this special moment. Classes, undergraduate and graduate of 2026, please stand for a moment and join us in an ovation that acknowledges the depth of their love, their support, and sacrifice has finally gotten you to the completion of the stage of your architectural education. Please be seated. To the class of 2026, this annual graduation celebration is our school's most joyful day of the year. Memories of your journey through our various programs, moments large and small are vivid in our minds, from your beginning as hopeful architecture students through endless lectures, quizzes, and exams, more crits and final reviews that I'm sure you would like to remember, special living academic experiences in Rome, remarkable trips to many places all over the country and the world, to finally reaching this momentous threshold. You are poised to exit into the world on your own, and you're on your way to becoming our professional colleagues, eventually, we hope, matching and exceeding our professional commitments and accomplishments. Beginning today, this is your day to shine. The stage to take and life stage along with this one are finally yours. In that spirit, please allow me to invite the valedictorians of the School of the Architecture Graduate Programs, Claire Stein, MADU, EMARC, and Cesar Corrosion, and Architecture Undergraduate Abigail Moore to the podium to speak, and beginning with Claire. Claire?
Thank you, Dean Paulozoides, for that kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone, staff and faculty, family and friends, and the undergraduate and graduate members of the School of Architecture's class of 2026. To reiterate, my name is Claire Stein, and I'm a Path C graduate student, meaning I didn't study architecture in undergrad, but rather double majored in political science and visual communication design. In my case, right here at Our Ladies University, shout out to the class of 2022. To address you here today, not 3 years since I first learned how to use an architectural scale, is humbling to say the least. I am fully aware of the real life things which both enrich and complicate the graduate school experience: spouses, children, TA and job demands, etc., and want to publicly acknowledge the many, many more experienced and talented architects who sit before me in the tent this afternoon. I have no doubt if all other factors were equal, it would not be me standing here giving this speech. Having established my comparative inexperience in the field of architecture, what advice can I possibly give to my graduating peers? Well, to start, I'm going to focus on advice I received from others, namely our professors, over the course of my condensed experience in the School of Architecture. An interviewer recently described my cohort as the few, the proud, the Path Cs. Early in my experience of this demanding course of study, I started compiling a list of reminders to self regarding this thing called architecture, what it entails, and how to do it. I hold in my hand the resulting document, my personal list of learnings for anyone seeking to go from architecture layperson to emerging professional in 6 short semesters. The early entries are embarrassingly obvious to me now. A note to self weeks into my first semester. Bring drawings up together, get everything to the same level. Another, work from general to specific. Another, step back. Think about contrast of the plate on the wall. In years 2 and 3, the document changed. I stopped dating entries, but started naming the sources of the learning. From architect and author Dimitri Porphyrios during an on-campus lecture, what you're trying to learn is how to better foresee what might go wrong. From John Meller in his pre-design remarks for our hotel project. If it's not working, try a new piece of paper, get a different pen. From Thomas Albrecht, chatting in our light-filled Rome studio. In architecture, meeting deadlines is even more important than quality. That one is sure to be controversial. I jotted down several architectural pearls of wisdom as a student in the grad school's infamous Stroik studio. From Duncan Stroik, we're not trying to be comprehensive, we're trying to be comprehensible. Another from him, it's not the best building you'll ever do, it's the best building you can do now. Another, I don't give up on things that I care about. And lastly, focus, Claire. The 5 B's, be brief, baby, be brief. I'm putting that one to the test at this very moment. Possibly the best advice I have ever received in architecture school is this: don't be stupid. Simple, but I have to tell you, the one I return to most. Unfortunately, its author is lost to history. Compiling tips became a treasure hunt for one. In the midst of confusion, I continued to root them out. The mantras to which I clung until I reached the deadline, passed the exam, found the next chance to take a deep breath and reset. A few last ones which you, my peers, might find helpful. In an email from Tiffany Abernathy at the beginning of thesis, we cannot control outcomes, but we can be rigorous about intentions, principles, and process. From James McCreary, my first boss in the field of architecture, a whole pile of wrong, wrong, wrong over 40 years, and suddenly you also have a lot of right, right, right. So you follow that path every time, and every project you get a little better. And lastly, from Todd Strickland, a professional mentor of mine, time and effort are the great levelers. I've spoken so far about things I've learned in architecture school. I'll close with a few things I've learned since I first graduated from Notre Dame, 4 years and 1 day ago to be exact. First, choice remains. Sure, many of the big decisions have been made, and not by us. But there are things we still have the privilege to choose. How we treat others, how we spend our free time, with what we engage, what we ignore, how we react. Even in the trying times in which we live, choice still exists. For 3, 5, 7 years or more, each of us graduates has refined a rare and important skill: the ability to make difficult decisions with limited information in very quick succession. In this way, architecture gives us no choice but to exploit our free will. Choice remains. My second piece of postgraduate advice is this: you can still change. If there is any significance to me giving this speech today, let it be for the human capacity for learning. Life is precious. Don't waste your time on this earth coloring inside the lines. You can still change. The third and last learning I'll share: you're only as good as your last outcome. So you were a straight A student. When you start your first job, you'll also be starting from square one. Prepare yourself for the drop from newly minted architecture school graduate to entry-level employee, and then work your way back up. On the flip side, so your thesis didn't go to plan, failure is instructive. Apply the lessons you learn and win the next one. Don't get complacent, don't get discouraged. Either way, if and when tomorrow comes, you'll have the opportunity to prove yourself better or worse than you are today. Before I conclude, I wish to extend an abridged but very sincere thanks to a few people. To the School of Architecture's staff, who worked at such a high level behind the scenes to pull off events like this, thank you. To my professors, both in the School of Architecture and the School of Arts, or the College of Arts and Letters, I should say. I've been in Notre Dame programs on and off since I was 17. Thank you for shaping me into the thinker and the person I am today. And lastly, to my family and friends, and especially to my very beloved parents who are here today with me, thank you for walking with me through all. Don't forget, architecture is merely the means. A better world is the end. To quote David Foster Wallace, I wish you way more than luck. Congratulations again to the class of 2026. Our next speaker is César Corrozian, the valedictory speaker for the Master of Science in Historic Preservation. Please welcome César.
Good afternoon, everyone. To the faculty, families, friends, and fellow graduates of the class of 2026, thank you for being here to celebrate this momentous occasion with us. Today, standing on this stage, I am not alone. I carry with me the souls of all the great women in my family who were forced to leave Western Armenia in 1915, walk through the desert of Syria, and to start a new life in Aleppo. For generations, they were devoted wives, daughters, and mothers. But they also believed deeply that education was the key to fighting ignorance, rising above hardship, imagining courtesy, and becoming better human beings. Each generation made enormous sacrifices so that the next generation could receive a better education. Their lives demonstrate that survival is not just about escaping destruction, it's about rebuilding what destruction leaves behind. Years later, I came to understand that lesson in the city where I was born and raised, Aleppo, Syria. When the bombing finally stopped, I visited the old city of Aleppo as a young member of the art camping project. I had already seen so many buildings damaged or destroyed in the new city, but what I experienced in the old city was something I cannot fully explain in words. One scene that I will never forget was an elderly man, bent over, sitting on a pile of stone, with a handwritten cardboard sign behind him that read, "This was my home." That was the day I decided to become a preservation architect. Later, while applying to the MSHP program at Notre Dame, I was struck by what I read about Father Soren, the university's founder. When Father Soren was away on a trip in the spring of 1879, the university was devastated by a fire. He returned to find his life's work destroyed. However, those who were present were astonished by his response. It's recounted that instead of bending, he stiffed. His attitude, his very posture, was that of absolute faith and resoluteness. Reading this account, I remembered the old man in Aleppo, bent over sitting on a pile of stones. I remembered the destroyed buildings of the old city and the survivors looking at them in despair. Deep in my heart, I wished they could hear Father Soren's inspiring words that resound to this day. If it were all gone, I should not give up. That day, I prayed for the opportunity to walk through the corridors of the University of Notre Dame, to feel the presence of Father Sorin and those who shared his vision, those who believed in power of education to elevate new generation intellectually and spiritually, and to help shape a future worthy of their vision. I thank the Lord to answering my prayer, as I have felt their spirit in every corner. When we first arrived at Notre Dame 2 years ago, we thought we were coming to study historic buildings, preservation methods, construction techniques, planning policies, and archival research, and we certainly learned these things. Our professors taught us how to analyze materials, document structure, understand the complexity of protecting historic places. But we also discovered something much deeper along the way. We learned patience. We learned to listen. We learned that every place carries layers of tradition and human experience, full of triumph, struggle, loss, and hope. And perhaps most importantly, we learned that preservation is not about resisting change. It is about guiding change with care. It is very hard to say goodbye to the beautiful little family we have formed with our professors over the past 2 years. Our dear professors and mentors. Thank you for challenging us, encouraging us, and believing in us even when we doubted ourselves. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and passion so generously. Your love for your vocation and for your students never ceases to inspire us, empower us, and continuously fan the flame within us. Each of you exemplifies what it means to be a true teacher. You've equipped us with knowledge to make a difference in the world, with wisdom to guide us in making the right kind of differences, and provide the nurturing educational environment so greatly needed. We are about to venture forth into the world, but what you've impacted to us will remain with us forever. My dear classmates, thank you. Thank you for your friendship, your kindness, your brilliance, and your resilience. Thank you for the laughter during the stressful critics, the encouragement before presentation, the shared frustration over impossible deadlines, and the countless moments that remind us we were never doing this alone. Each of you brought us unique perspective to this program. We came from different places, backgrounds, and experiences, but we were united by the shared belief that places matter and the protecting them matters. Years from now, I don't think we will remember every assignment or deadline, but I think we will remember the feeling of walking through historic spaces together and realizing that preservation is ultimately an act of hope. As we leave Notre Dame to begin the next chapter of our lives, we will always remember that historic preservation is not just about buildings. It's about people. It's about memories. It's about identity, community, and precious stories worth preserving. Like the buildings and landscapes we studied, we too have been shaped by Notre Dame, strengthened through challenges, and prepared for new purposes. We are deeply grateful for you, Notre Dame. Congratulations, Class of 2026. Thank you. Now, I would like to introduce the undergrad valedictorian, Abigail Moore.
Good afternoon, friends, family, faculty, and of course, my graduates. When I think of this class, I think of Sagesta. March of our Rome year, the class took a trip down to Sicily, and part of our bus tour of that southernmost portion of Italy included a stop in what seemed like the middle of nowhere. For our architecture tours in Europe, as one might imagine, we usually stopped in denser urban areas because, we were there to study the architecture. But here the bus parked us on a hillside far from any village. We all clambered out of the bus, some of us stopping for a quick to-go pizza or coffee from the small pop-up shop that lined the parking lot, the only structure in sight. There was hardly anyone else around, and it was windy. Windy. I could almost imagine California's Santa Ana winds had wrapped halfway around the world to meet me here. Our unknown purpose, mixed with the rhythmic, furious gusts, filled our group with a strange giddiness and anticipation. Rounding the bend around the shop and following a short trail upwards, the reason for our trip became clear. Perched at the top of a knoll on the hill was an ancient Greek temple, all of its columns standing and crowned with a full pediment. The Doric entablature still donned its triglyphs. We began to understand exactly what it was the British were trying to imitate in their construction of the romantic, picturesque gardens that we had studied in previous classes. Here was the origin, the delayed gratification, the folly set at a distance engulfed in a rich landscape. What Professor Bess would term an object building in anti-space, but one of the good ones. This temple was the 400s BC roots of those things from textbooks and lectures, and we were just there. That's what made our year in Rome, and now completed, our education at Notre Dame so special. We not only learn about things, but we truly experience the long chain of design influence design, and then take a stab at adding our own small links to this chain too. But its rich history is not the thing that first comes to mind. when I recall Segesta. Instead, I picture the boys racing the 3/4 of a mile up to the ancient theater at the crest of the hill. I see Brian, winded, uh, and starfished at the square center of the theater stage, the probable winner. Together, we crawled all over the hilltop ruins and coalesced at the half-ring stone stadium seats. Together, we looked out onto a stone stage backdropped by the Sicilian countryside hundreds of feet below. It was dizzying. The wind blew so furiously we'd laugh aloud when a gust hits us. Andrew protected himself with his flannel draped around his head and explored the ruins looking very much like an Ewok. Andres found his own perch climbing the thick stone wall that guarded the steeper cliff edge of the hillside, and dared some of us, myself included, to join him, hanging our legs over the edge. The wind at Segesta delighted Lucy so much that to this day I think of her whenever it's really windy out. On our hike down, the temple peeked in and out of view, through breaks in the shrubs as the trail wound down around the backside of the hill, and we made our way back to the bus. We laughed and watched as Nate took his own off-road journey to cut directly down to the bus through the brambles. It's these experiences we've shared in the company of world-class structures that have made us both exceptional designers and good friends. I hope that as we move into our professional careers in architecture, we keep close at hand the times we really connected and the spaces that made that connection possible. We are a tight-knit group. I think it's rare to come to a highly competitive university, choose one of its most rigorous majors, and then find there 40 individuals so quick to celebrate each other's successes, especially before their own. I think not many classes would prefer to take their beach trips as a group of 40, their dinners randomly assorted, and their hangout spots dropped in the group chat with all of us. I hope you all don't stop loving and lifting up the people around you as you move to new firms with new studio cultures. I trust we will design to bring people together just as this program has brought us together. People-oriented people make people-oriented designs. Beyond the classrooms and the lectures, that's what I've learned from getting to work with all of you. So cheers to all of our growth and successes these past years, and congratulations, my class of 2026. I'd now like to welcome Dean Polizordis back to the podium.
Thank you, Abby. And thank you all. At this time, I would like that our student speakers take their seats with their fellow classmates in the audience. Today, we are pleased to welcome back to our beautiful campus as our keynote speaker a School of Architecture alum from the class of 1966, John Torti.
Say more?
I'm going to say more, much more. No, but you have to stand next to me, John.
We have to say
Yes. John Torti is a founding and longtime principal of Torti Gallas and Partners, a distinguished architecture and urbanism firm practicing in Washington, D.C. In recognition of his 50-plus year career and the many contributions to our profession, John was elected to the American Institute of Architects College of Fellows in 2001. In 2015, he became a member of the National Board of the Congress of the New Urbanism. He's also a member of the Advisory Council for the School of Architecture at the University of Notre Dame since 2003. And at the Board of Visitors of the School of Architecture and Planning at the Catholic University of America, where he is also an adjunct professor. Most importantly, John is a pure embodiment of the mission of our university and the highest aspirations of its schools of architecture. protecting the dignity of all human beings, engaging in community building, practicing solidarity with those in need, and subsidiarity in democratizing decision-making across the board. It is a great personal honor and privilege to introduce John Torti to you today because above all else, he's a treasured friend and a great colleague. John?
Wow. Thank you very much, Stefanos. I appreciate those wonderful words. And good afternoon, graduates, friends, family, mothers, fathers, grandparents, and special congratulations to the 2026 graduates of the School of Architecture of the University of Notre Dame. When I grew up in the Bronx, I learned a very special way of congratulating people. And it goes, Felicità per cent'anni. May you be happy for 100 years. And that is my wish for you. Salute. This is a great day, and I thank you for letting me share it with you. I'm guessing that I was asked to speak today for several reasons. One, I kind of speak my mind. Two, I love this place. I have worked with 80, now 81, welcome to Torti Gallis, Claire, graduates of this program in architecture over my 33 years in working with in my tenure at Torti Gallis and Partners. And it's been a privilege to work with each and every one, 7 of which have become partners of mine. So this is a place of great learning, great doing, and producing people that truly make this world better. The other reason I might be here today is the path to my own small success, not exactly easy. It was a very bumpy road. And I think the outcome and some stories about how I got where I managed to get may be of interest to some of you today. I am so happy that the outcome was better than I ever expected when I graduated 60 years ago this past January. By the way, because I graduated in January, this is my first architecture commencement ceremony at the University of Notre Dame. So thank you for sharing this with me again. I know this talk is too long. I'm going to try to make it as quick as I can. Let me start by making 3 big requests. One, the world needs your help, each and every one of you, faculty, parents, grandparents as well, in healing this fractured world, dealing with AI, and trying to grapple with climate change. In my 84 years, which is 1/3 the history of the United States, the confluence of big issues like this is unprecedented. And I'm so happy you have the tools that you have acquired over the last 5 or 6 years during your education, over your lifetimes with your families and friends, to be able to start to grapple with these very big issues. This is a very important time in society, in civilization, in my opinion. Healing the fractured world. Our culture has gone through many changes since World War II. This is kind of when I was born, the war to end all wars. And they've always self-corrected, moving from conservative to progressive, and back again, usually on a decade or couple of decade cycle. But we, the people, have always managed to correct the deviation from going too far and bring it back. So you'll notice, you students of history, how this kind of ebbs and wanes. And we're on the moment, I believe, of a great change again. But I think there's a larger arc to a different kind of change that's been happening not over a decade or two, but over centuries. And it's not happened in a few years or even a few months, as some people may think. And the changes are a loss of ability to talk with each other, a loss of ability to have a point of view, understand what we think, be able to listen to someone else's point of view, and literally hear them and try to come to a compromise. It seems to be that those that don't think like us are our enemies, not our fellow Americans. It's a very frightening thing in my brain. And I'm hoping that we come together, each and every one of us. I don't think the Messiah is going to come down or another president's going to do it. I think it really has to be corrected from the bottom up, from you and me together, speaking out, knowing what we believe, and being able to listen. The second big issue, I think, is AI. This is a quote I think is good. AI will be the most transformative and yet dangerous technology in human history. So how do I think about that? A little, I've got 3 brain cells left. How do you think about that? Got millions of brain cells left. This is a time when being worried about exactly what you learned here, be able to think, to solve problems, think creatively, and marshal the world for positive change. I envision a couple of decades from now that this pedagogy may disappear because it's too easy to ask AI, to ask what my wife uses, Gemini. And I think the holding dear the kinds of things that you have learned, that you have struggled with, that Mr. Alberti that we passed on the way out championed 500 years ago. Will there still be a champion 500 years from now? I think it's a very important question. And if you are going to do good in the world, I think we have to stand up together and think about that really hard and do the best we can to keep this pedagogy going. Oops, on the wrong page. Last one in the first part of my speech. Please don't forget about climate change. Climate change has not forgotten about you. It absolutely blows my mind how we could put the issue of our very survival under the rug and not deal with it. One of Father Hesburgh's basic principles was that you don't make decisions because they're easy, you make decisions because they're right. If you're going to do good in the world, the job of fighting climate change and the ambivalence to climate change ends now because it's the right thing to do. Each one of these mega issues is not going to be solved by a single person, a single company, or a single country. It involves all of us. So thank you for joining my little bandwagon of the big three. And now for the second part of my talk. I, as Stefano suggested, graduated here 60 years ago. And one of the infamous parts of my life is that was a champion of failure. I did not have, this is an excuse, I'll admit it, I did not have the value of the kind of education you had. That kind of started in the mid-'80s. I graduated in '66, when the education was more akin to what many other universities teach in architecture. A little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit this way, a little bit that way. And so I graduated and I went a little bit this way, a little bit that way, a little bit up, a little bit down, and really searched or wandered in the desert, as I like to coin it, for 20, 25 years. One failure after another. And I've learned a couple of things on the way. And oh, by the way, someone that you should enlist, if you haven't already, is a good guardian angel, because I believe, truly believe, that Providence has given me the best, because I've been a fool and I've made a lot of bad decisions. And somehow, some way, through the kindness of strangers, it works its way through. So one lesson is never stop. Just keep going. Don't be afraid to take risks. The basic kind of principle that I put on top of this cake is respect. And I learned respect, sure, from my parents and growing up, the kind of dutiful respect a son gives. But I really didn't learn respect until we began to work in very low-income neighborhoods. And basically, we were white, and basically they were black and brown. And so we talked at each other for weeks and months sometimes, and nothing ever happened. And then it dawned on me one time when it really did start to happen. What had changed? What had changed is we got to know each other as human beings. We began to respect each other. And then we got to put our heads together, and things really started to happen fantastically. And I will tell you, I've been humbled more than once in that situation. And being open to other people's point of view, to their life experiences, to respect them as individuals is an amazing, amazing thing. So the respect brings with it trust. It brings a respect of yourself, your team, your clients, the people in the neighborhood, your neighbors, and it develops relationships. And it is the relationships with the guy on my shoulder and everybody else that I meet that carries you through in the darkest of times. So as architects, we want to imagine and believe, and we should. But when we believe, we need to be able to test the good and the bad and the ugly, and we need to start developing an ideology and a point of view about what we believe. You know, everybody's saying, yeah, I already got that. Okay, good. And then be able to talk about it in words, not only in beautiful drawings, be able to defend it to people that don't believe what you believe, to be able to listen. You hear this again? To be able to listen to those people and to be able to try to accept some deviation in your ideology, in your belief, if it's required. And once you're armed with that belief, you're able to discuss it and debate it, you're in a much more powerful position instantaneously. With me, this didn't happen until I was over 40. I just didn't get that. I didn't pick that up anywhere until I was over 40. And then a mentor that I didn't even know, I actually didn't even know of, came into my life. His name was Thomas Gordon Smith. Anybody know that name? So what did Thomas do? And I'm sitting there in Washington, or whatever I was living, Washington. And I'm looking at my school, you know, kind of checking it out. And I see it go from the multitude of this or that or another thing kind of architecture school to an architecture school with a point of view, with an ideology that can be defended and depended upon, that is based on not somebody's last year's thought, but is based upon the culture of thousands of years. A pretty decent foundation. And I said to myself, wow, you know, I always liked that traditional architecture stuff. And look at what it did. Look what it did for Notre Dame. It's a place I loved, no doubt about it. I mean, it took this school from nowhere to definitely somewhere, and you are somewhere. You're a fantastic group of young architects. Oops, I got to go to the next page. Hold on. And so I learned a very, very big lesson, and that was to have and develop a point of view. So I kind of started in my 40s to have this point of view. And as you have it and as you hone it, it builds, and as you test it, it builds confidence in you. And the minute that starts to happen, you will notice you have a different position at the table among the people you talk to. I mean, I was in practice all of this time, one way or another. But basically, I always had the baby chair. I always sat in the children's table. I didn't have a chair at the table. And all of a sudden, oh, wow, you know, I believe this. This is why I believe it. This is why you should do it. I'm a credible person, and it gets to be contagious. And you build confidence. So about taking risks. I'm lucky I'm alive. I have failed so many times. I came here from the Bronx and I matriculated in a program against my counselor's wishes. He said, Torty, you should be an architect. Your test scores are off the charts in spatial relationships. Look, you got into Notre Dame. They have an architecture program. You should go there. So I said, hey, Notre Dame, sure, that sounds fine. Far away from the Bronx. I was a reckless teenager. And I said, but I don't want to go to college for 5 years. Everybody knows college is 4 years. Find me something in that book so it was engineering. After 2 years of flunking out, I crawled my way in front of Alice, Frank Montana's one of the previous heads of the school, for an appointment with the dean. What do you want? I said, well, I'm really struggling. Truth be known, I was probably going through my first nervous breakdown at that time because, you know, I'm the first kid in the family that went to college. I was the first kid in the family that flew on an airplane. I'm the first kid in the family that paid tuition, about a third of what my father was making in those days. Not too much pressure, and I'm flunking out. 1,000 miles away, and I'm flunking out. I'm in this place, which is like close to heaven, and I'm flunking out. So Frank saved me. Well, what do you know, John? Well, I know engineering is not for me. I really have no reason to understand what the molecules in this desk are doing under my thumb, and that's what they're trying to get me to learn. And my brain exploded. So I said, well, you know, like some of my uncles were in construction. And, you know, my dad was a fireman, but he's now in the building line. He's now a carpenter. So I helped him build our house. And I like to draw. And I basically retreated to my room to draw in my depression. So he says, "Do you have a portfolio?" I said, "A what? What's a portfolio?" So, "Your drawings." I said, "Yeah, they're back in my dorm." He says, "Well, I got an appointment at 4. If you can get back here by 3:30 with your drawings, we'll take a look at them." I ran back. I took all the stuff off the wall. I came back, running across campus, drawings flying all over the place because I didn't have a portfolio. And you know, he said, "I'll give you a shot. So I'll let you in." "Thank you, sir." I show up for my first studio. This is my junior year. Everybody else is sophomore year. And guess who I sat next to? Francis Dai-Kam Ching. I will tell you, he could draw as well in 1963 as he draws today. An amazing guy. So I competed, right? I was from the Bronx. All we did was compete. So after that failure, I graduated. I went to Washington. I went to graduate school in Catholic U. I was almost, I worked for I got a fellowship from the National Capital Planning Commission. I was a young urban designer. And on April 5th, 1968, the day after Martin Luther King was assassinated, I stood in my office window, which was just north of the White House. I looked out over Washington, D.C., and it was burning. 3 assassinations, and now the capital of the United States is burning. Wow. I was 27, I think. It was scary. I was never more frightened in my entire life. Troops immediately filled the streets, and the world, again, is upended. So by some strange circumstance, 2 of my hero design professors, Don Sporletter and Brian Kremler, some of you older guys might remember them, asked me to come out and be their partner, not work for them, be their partner in a small firm in Mishawaka, Indiana. Whoa! Risk? I gave up graduate school, packed up my family, and we were here in 5.5 minutes. I'm in partnership at 27 with my hero professors. Guess what? As good as those guys were, they didn't know what you know. They didn't design or teach me to design on principles, on classical principles, on principles of humanity, of humanism, of urbanism. They just designed to make things pretty. If it looked good, it was good. And guess what? Ooh, I hate to say this. Well, I'll say it this way. Being a teacher and having a practice at the same time is not an easy thing. It's a very difficult thing. That I could tell you is true. So in 2 or 3 years, that practice failed. And I failed. And then I started a not-for-profit planning community design corporation in the West End of South Bend. 3 years later, Nixon didn't fund anything going on in any city in the United States, and that failed. Engineering, Crumler Sporletter, and the Planning and Development Action team on Chapin Street. Failure, failure, failure. I had a family, had 2 kids. We were poor. I was, in my 30s at this time. And I moved back to South Bend. I moved back to Washington, D.C., got a safe job working for a firm that did mediocre work, took my ideology, wrapped it up in a nice Christmas box, put a bow around it, and put it under the bed. And put my head down and made money, right? Well, I didn't know what else to do. it was the lowest point of my entire life. And then two wondrous things happened. So I had this kind of point of view I was trying to develop, and I stumbled across Andras Dwani at Catholic U giving a lecture about his town that he was trying to get off the ground called Seaside. And he talked about the new urbanism, and he talked about another way of doing things. It doesn't have to be suburban. It can be urban at big city scale, small town scale, village scale, hamlet scale. There are places in this universe at all of those scales that are beautiful, wonderful, supportive places to live, that are walkable, mixed use, and community. So this is what he was preaching. So I had to learn more about it. And I realized that he and 5 of his friends, one of them, Stefanos, Liz Plater-Zyberg, Liz Moule, Dan Solomon, and Peter Calthorpe, really gave a vision to the future that America and the world could take and has taken as a new direction. And it took me about that much time to figure out that this was a good thing. Well, you know what? You know how I knew it? Not because I went to school here, not because I was so smart. I lived this kind of community in the Bronx in the 40s and the 50s, before drugs and before gangs. It was the community, my neighborhood, Old St. Brendan's. Extended family lived there. The teachers loved us, most of them. Sister Cadgerton, maybe not. The Sam Weiss, the candy store operator, Pete Miranda, the deli operator, all had their eyes out for us. And I got it. There was 3 or 4 different means of public transportation within 2 blocks of us. And it was an amazing way to live. And that's what these guys were talking about. So I got it. I got it. I bought it. Sold. What's his name? Not Peter, Paul. Got hit by lightning, fell off the horse. John got hit by lightning, fell off the horse. So I had a point of view I was conjuring. I had this new kind of ideology to wrap into it because I was really amazing. I tell you, I tried. I tried to do good things and could not. Did not know how. Wasn't smart enough. But these guys were. And I was very happy to become their acolyte. It was an amazing transformation. So I re-educated myself, which is easy to do in a town like Washington, D.C. There's a million lectures, a million smart people coming through. And in the next 10 years, I changed. I brought it to my firm, and we got a little bit better. I got to find my place. I'm sorry, I went way ahead. That's good news. Oh, well, we don't need this. So I brought it to my firm, and then tragedy struck one more time. There was a death, there was a horrible recession in and around 1990s, and the black sheep of the firm was given ownership of the firm. Me. And I'm telling you, the leaders of the firm were very wonderful human beings. They weren't great architects, but they were wonderful human beings. And I said, oh no, I'm not even Jewish. It was a Jewish firm. I'm from New York. Yeah, what can I say? Everybody has his place. And so I said, okay, but I've been working on something different than what we do. I'm 50 years old now. This is 92-ish, right? 93. I'm 50 years old. Maybe if my angel allows, I got another career left. So I want to do it differently. And I said, if you want to come, 37 people, $2 million in debt, 1993. If you want to come with me and we'll do it together, I'd be glad to have you. You're a lot of talent. You know a lot of good stuff. You're a talented architect. You know how to build buildings. You know how to do great drawings, construction drawings. So I said, if you don't, I think I might leave and I'll give you the firm. Not really giving them anything, right? 2 million in debt. And I said, and I'll just go out and try this on my own. And so at that moment, 37 ordinary architects, 37, I'm one of them, decided to take a new route, to try to give up suburbanism, which they know and love and live off of for many, many years. And we tried to become a firm, an urbanist firm. In Washington, it wasn't too hard to become a traditional architecture firm. It was a good thing back in those days. So we did it. And we grew. And that year, by some strange coincidence, we won the first national design award this 40-year-old firm had ever won. With a new urbanist town with Andres Schwani on the jury. So I got to tell you, I did not hit the ground for 3 weeks. I was unbelievable. I mean, there is no better affirmation than the affirmation of your peers that you respect. It is an absolutely wonderful thing. So we have risk, we had failure. Part of failure that I want to interject here, it said it here in one of these pages, that I think is important, is that you learn forgiveness. Because people around you will fail. Your team members will fail. You will fail. You have to be able to forgive people. And in learning how to forgive people, you actually begin to learn to forgive yourself. And it is a marvelous, marvelous grace that God gives us, forgiveness. It's an important piece of your careers, one way or another, up or down. It's a very, very big piece. I have a point of view. I have an ideology. I could begin to argue with people about it. I could begin to learn a little bit more. And I have this idea that I could risk and fail and live another day. It's an amazing, amazing thing. So, I have one more note here I want to talk about. Team. It's almost the last thing. So we started this firm, Torti. And I said, oh my God, Angel, what am I going to do? I don't know anything about business. You know, I like to play in the sand. I like to think about big things. I like to draw. So I looked around the room, and there was this guy that used to be the accountant for the old firm. His name was Tom Gallus. I said, Tom, I did know this. I did learn. One of my mistakes I've learned. You know, there are people in this world that like to do things that you hate to do. Tom, come over here, let me hug you. You're my guy. I said, you do this, I do this, we're happy. I respect what you do, 100%. You respect what I do, 100%, we'll go forward. And we did. Somehow that stupid equation worked with us. If we couldn't get it up there in the high 90%, we didn't do it. If we wouldn't think that we could be a good business success and a good design success at the same time. So we also come to learn that contrary to what I believed of a good team is like you guys, if I could have you all in an office to be the best team in the world, and that's not true. A good team is a team that worries about each team member's success as much as they worry about their own success. I got to tell you, when I learned that from Dr. Laura, not the one on TV, another Dr. Laura, and tried to think about those times when I've been on teams like that, it is amazing. It is absolutely amazing what gets done when I worry about you and you worry about me. The kind of synergy that happens is amazing. So I like to think that with your background, with your families, with what you've learned here, you are ready. And I have one more very short thing to tell you. It's a story by the French writer and kind of philosopher by the name of Apollinaire. It goes like this. He said, "Come closer." And they withdrew. "Come closer to the edge." We're afraid. "Come closer," he demanded. And they did. "Jump." "It's too high." "Jump." And they did. And they flew. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John, for the great speech. By the way, John was my first boss, and he's a very demanding one, but a great one. We are happy to celebrate our faculty today, along with our graduating students. I would like to recognize those who have received significant research and other awards during this academic year. Professor Xu Han received IBPSA Innovative Application Award from International Building Performance Simulation Association. Professor Paul Kapp received the James Martin Finch Lifetime Achievement Award from National Council for Preservation Education. Professor Duncan Stroik received the Best Brick and Stone Project Award from International Union of Bricklayers and Alliant Craft Workers. Professor Ettore Mazzola received Arthur Ross Award nomination from Institution of Classical Architecture and Art. Professor Giuseppe Mazzoni is the winner of a 2026 Thomas P. Madison Award from University of Notre Dame. Professor Ming Hu received the 2026 AIA ACSA Practice and Leadership Award from American Institute of Architects and Association of Collegiate School of Architecture. I'm also very pleased to announce the following awards, which comes as a very high honor because they are voted on by our students. The Undergraduate Educator of the Year is Professor John Mello. John, where are you? Thank you, John. And Graduate Educator of the Year is Professor Duncan Stroik. Thank you to all my colleagues for their dedication to the students. Watching our new graduates go forth and join the profession is a great reminder of why we all choose to teach and inspire the next generation of architects. I now invite Assistant Dean of Graduate Studies, Professor Richard Economakis, and Dean Stephanos Plozoides to come forward to confer degrees on master's candidates.
Thank you, Ming. Would the candidates for the degree of Master of Architectural Design and Urbanism please stand?
As Dean of the School of Architecture at the University of Notre Dame du Lac, and in the name of Reverend Father President Robert A. Dowd, CSC, and of the trustees of the university and of the faculty of the School of Architecture, I solemnly and publicly confer upon you the degree of Master of Architecture Design and Urbanism. We admit you to all its rights and all its privileges and remind you of the responsibilities you're about to assume. May God bless you and keep you. Congratulations.
I now invite these students to come forward and receive their diplomas. Julia Nicole Almeter. Davis Murithi Gikundi. Kevin Edward Johnson. Weldon Kimutai Kimwatich. Ivy Wanjiru Mwangi. Leanne Vera. Would the candidates for the degree of Master of Architecture please stand?
As Dean of the School of Architecture of the University of Notre Dame du Lac, that's an unusual connection of languages, and in the name of the Reverend Father President Robert A. Dowd, CSC, and with trustees of the university and of the faculty of the School of Architecture, I solemnly and publicly confer upon you the degree of Master of Architecture. We admit you to all its rights and privileges and remind you of the responsibilities that you're about to assume. May God bless you and keep you. Congratulations.
I now invite these students to come forward and receive their diplomas. Lacey Janelle Allen. Charles Gary Atkins. Christiana Marie Melissa Briggs. Madison Gabrielle Engel. Oliver Luke Falling. Krista Lee Frick Gabrielson. John Alexander Gleason. Sophia Marie Jacobiello. Claire Grantham Stein. Matthew James Wilinski. Would the candidates for the degree of Master of Science in Historic Preservation please stand?
As Dean of the School of Architecture of the University of Notre Dame, and in the name of Reverend Father President Robert A. Dowd, CSC, and of the trustees of the university and the faculty of the School of Architecture, I solemnly and publicly confer upon you the degree of Master of Science in Historic Preservation. We admit you to all its rights and privileges and remind you of the responsibilities you're about to assume. May God bless you and keep you. Congratulations.
I now invite these students to come forward and receive their diplomas. Ceza Korozian. Morgan Joseph Palmer. Bruno Pereña da Silva. Rama Ali Wario.
Tomorrow morning in the stadium, Reverend Father President Robert A. Dowd, CSC, will confer the degree of Bachelor of Architecture on 41 of our students. I now invite these students to come forward and receive their diplomas. First row. Sarah Elizabeth Biter. William David Birmingham. Brian Murray Butner. Josibel Andrea Cabrera. Victoria Isabel Chamorro. Rylan James Cromie. Cecilia Bennett Cobb. Lucy Marie Florenzo. Samantha Monique Francois. Emily Joanna Gonzalez. Margaret Ann Hammond. Karen Jean Hickey. Devlin Plunkett Hose. Jose Maria Hurtado. Laura Renata Aida Latour Cabral. Lauren Elizabeth Liebezeit. Alfonso Daniel Leocadio Lima. Julia Margovitz McGibbon. Isabella McGrath. Where am I? Okay. Okay. Amelia Casas McKenna. Nathan Andrew McLeod. Miriam Mendoza. Abigail Marie Moore. Ethan Peyton Morgan. John Xavier Nash. Andrew O. Joshua Jinsheng O. Mia Grace Palela. Joseph Harbin Perdue. Regina Marie Principali. Andrew James Purring. Kate Elizabeth Schnickler. Lauren Kathleen Shaheen. Maria Madalena Stroik. Miriam Margaret Suti. Robert Andres Tihurena. Fran Tresorat. Nandita Varma. Matthew Donegan Watley. Rachel Lee Williams.
The closing remarks during this annual ceremony are a long-standing privilege of the Dean of the School of Architecture. I would like first to acknowledge the faculty and staff of the school who have done such a superb job of mentoring you and supporting every facet of your Notre Dame education. Can both groups of faculty and staff please stand up or step forward to be acknowledged? Can you please stand up? Dear undergraduate and graduate classes of 2026, in a country and a world operating under duress, your next decade of intense apprenticeship will not be easy. Be ready for your integrity and your judgment to be tested early and often. As you have learned during your time here and in Rome, being an architect is much more than a job. It is a calling to lead and to serve humanity by a combination of both of your skills and your values. The road to prominence as an architect is not a direct one. Architecture is a discipline and profession without answers, just deep and continuous questions. It offers extraordinary opportunities, rewards, and pleasures, as it is also constantly affected by dilemmas and by challenges. Two of these challenges you'll be called to face almost immediately upon exiting to the world tomorrow, as you heard John Torti speak about. The massive AI intrusion into our lives and the malpractice of classical architecture and urbanism by our current federal administration. AI is misdescribed. This morning I checked out the definition by AI itself, and that's what it says about itself. I am a super fast data crunching processing operation that identifies patterns, makes predictions, and automates complex tasks. But in your faculty's clear discernment, it also lacks all of the characteristics that make our native intelligence so essential to living a consequential and happy life, such as accountability, intentionality, judgment, empathy, curiosity, and most important, agency. AI may be useful in supporting some areas of human endeavor that depend on the rapid crunching of massive data, but it is at odds with the demands of the visual arts, where authorship, the presence of the human touch, and the human spirit, the Holy Spirit, is an essential presence. Please consider that during your time here, and drawing mostly by hand, your imagination has produced work of beauty and authenticity that is clearly meaningful and useful. This is the path to academic and professional greatness, and you must stay on it at any cost. At Notre Dame, you have also learned that classicism is an experience and principles-based universal generative living tradition. A culture of imagining, composing, and constructing that, upon mastering it, empowers you to act boldly in giving fresh new form to human institutions, assembling cities of unique character, and forging a sustained relationship with nature. At its inception, our republic chose classicism to express its foundational ideals in built form. For almost 250 years, the American way of building its classical civic monuments has strived to express the unique character of our nation. Unlike those other countries, our civic buildings are humanly scaled, unornamented, simply crafted, expressive of our community bonds, and unique to our deliberative political culture. They express our commitment to national unity, decency, tolerance, respect for others, and eagerness to live our family and public lives by adherence to justice and the truth. A sectarian classicism that arbitrarily strays from millennial form principles, divides our national family, breaks administrative norms, is new, unwelcome, and foreign to traditions of our American Republic. It misrepresents our country's values, damages our university's mission, and diminishes our school's pedagogy and its reputation. The consequences of submitting to this kind of watered-down traditionalism has major consequences. It saps the integrity and personal responsibility necessary to excel as a teacher and a professional. And it transforms civic buildings conceived for self-aggrandizement, fame, and fortune into yet another commercial commodity, their form eventually trending to irreversible kitsch. This is the path to academic and professional irrelevance, and you must avoid it at any cost. Dear undergraduate and graduate classes of 2026, you're already an unstoppable force for good. Go into the world in peace, love, faith, empathy, and care for all others. Dedicate your work to the service of your neighbors, your fellow citizens, and all of humanity that so needs your optimism, your energy, and your goodwill. We deeply appreciate and love you. Stay in touch, come back to your alma mater often, and make us all proud with news of our accomplishments in both your life and your work. Congratulations, and may the living God of your particular faith tradition bless you and keep you. Thank you all for being here to share this magnificent day with us. Please stand while we sing Notre Dame, Our Mother. Family and friends, I present to you the University of Notre Dame School of Architecture undergraduate and graduate class of 2026. Go Irish!